Good evening. I'm Kelly Wright. Thanks for joining me as we spend the next hour together. As always, I hope that you're safe and well, taking care of yourself and your family because you matter, especially in times like these. Coming up tonight, CeCe Winans joins us later in the show. Make sure you stick around to see what she has to say and her new music as well. Before we get into that, my opening observations focus on the president and the first lady. As you know, they have tested positive for COVID 19 and are now quarantining themselves at the White House. But let's look back on the past when the president sent out mixed messages. Let's look back on the past when the president made a mockery of people wearing masks.
You're gonna have to take that off, please. Just, you can take it off. How many feet are you away?
I'll speak a lot louder.
Well, if you don't take it off, you're very muffled. So if you would take it off, it would be a lot easier.
I'll just speak a lot louder. Is that better?
It's better. Yeah. I wore one in this back area, but I didn't want to give the press the pleasure of seeing it. You have to understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test, and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to, but I
Just
wear
like your
masks
rallies.
when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. Our country is doing great. We had to take a pause to get rid of the China virus, and we're coming around that turn. I'm telling you, you watch.
Again, the president of the United States testing positive with COVID 19. Our prayers go out to him as well as the first lady and the 207,000 people who have lost their lives. And those are my opening observations. So, how do we look at all of this from a political perspective? Well, to weigh in on it are attorneys Timothy Allen Simon and Mark Harris. They're out of California, my West Coast connection. Gentlemen, we got an October surprise from the president and the first lady. The president tweeting early this morning after 1 a.m. that he and First Lady Melania Trump did, in fact, test positive for COVID 19. And now he is in quarantine along with his wife. What does this mean politically in terms of the president campaigning for his reelection and now having to, for all intents and purposes, shut things down on the campaign trail?
I think you hit it, Kelly. I think he's got to shut things down in terms of his physical interaction, which is his strong suit. I think he was counting on being able to have those mass rallies all the way up to November 3rd. That won't happen. Hopefully what this means is we won't see another debacle like we saw the other night in terms of another debate. Hopefully this will cancel out the rest of the debates. I don't need to see that again. I don't think America needs to see that again. Campaigning is changing, as we know. I was disappointed, quite honestly, to hear that Vice President Biden was going to follow the president's lead and do a door-to-door element of his campaigning. I think that is not wise during these times. That was, of course, before it was announced that the president has been diagnosed with COVID-19. So the bottom line is, if we can have schools remote and virtual, we can have a campaign remote and virtual. And I hope that the president and the vice president take heed and follow the advice of medical professionals.
Timothy, these indeed are difficult times and unlike any other we've seen.
Well, based upon the training that my mother and father gave me, let me call on my higher angels and extend my prayers to the Trump family, the White House staff, and all those that have been in contact with the president. I know many are living with that burden of the mystery of COVID violence, the COVID virus. I'm sorry, that was a Freudian slip. I do think that it should wake up the Trump campaign, the Trump followers, and our nation that we need healthcare. The president is receiving the best healthcare in the world as we speak. He and the first lady, who just signaled mild symptoms from COVID-19, that we need a national COVID plan that is followed by all the states in order to finally gain control of this virus, that he comes out and says it's obviously not a hoax. It's not going to go away in April. It didn't go away as the nation warmed, as temperatures warmed. and we as a nation must come together to attack this vicious pandemic.
You know, to both of your points, traditionally, as we look at this historically, ironically, on this exact day, October 2nd, in 1919, Woodrow Wilson suffered from influenza. It caused him to have a stroke. He was already dealing with hypertension. And the White House doctors were not transparent with the American public about President Wilson's illness at that time. How important is it for White House doctors and those treating the president remain transparent with the American public and tell us specifically what is going on? To your point, Timothy Allen Simon, about coming out and say, hey, folks, this is not a hoax. This is real. COVID-19 has penetrated the Oval Office.
So far, there appears to have been transparency on the progress of the virus with the president and the first lady. I understand that we're not being told its treatment. This is a sketchy issue in our history. As you know, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's polio was kept from the American people, and many would not realize that he was actually wheelchair bound. So I believe, you know, we have a 24-hour news cycle today. The White House and the president are converged upon continuously with reporters seeking, you know, information for the American people and the world. It's my hopes that the White House will also open up the treatment that the president's receiving in order for people to know, you know, what hope we may have as a nation and a world to tackle this virus.
And we'll be back with more after the break. Mark, does this prevent the president now from going out and making fun of those who wear masks, including mocking his opponent, Joe Biden, for wearing a mask? Does it change his behavior?
Well, let me show you what I think about that. Every time I step out of the house, I'm wearing a mask. I think that what America should do and Americans should do is to be mindful of the fact that you're not wearing a mask for your own protection, you're wearing a mask for everyone else's protection. One of the challenges I have with this, Kelly, is one of the things I'm seeing trending on social media of people believing that this whole announcement of the president getting COVID-19 is somehow a hoax. When you have a lack of credibility coming from the White House, you have a number of people out here who are saying, we think this is yet another contrived, we talked about Hail Mary on the part of the president relative to this campaign, maybe a sympathy vote, maybe to explain his poor performance in the original debate. This is a very difficult time for our country. The trust and credibility of the very fabric of governance in this country is being called into question. And I hope that one of the things that will come from this is the fact that there is a national policy for mask wearing. Every time one of us walks outside of our home, whether we're going to be inside or outside, I believe we should at minimum be wearing this mask.
Good point that you make, for a dramatic point indeed, and yet one that is necessary, that we learn to mask up and COVID down. Gentlemen, I want to ask you about, based on something you said, Mark, about some people treating this and looking at this as perhaps the president is operating in fake news with this. But here's the bottom line. If we have grown to a point where we're no longer trusting our government leaders, what does that say about Russia's interference with our election? And with the president out of commission now, seemingly for the next 14 days because of being in a COVID-19 quarantine, do you anticipate Russia stepping up its interference in our election? And what should intelligence officials be doing now? Should they continue to withhold information from the American public and members of Congress, or should they move forward with all due diligence to let us know just how much of a threat interference is in our election?
You mentioned the lack of transparency behind Woodrow Wilson's illness in 1919. My colleague and dear friend, Commissioner Simon, mentioned it in the context of the polio of FDR. Jack Kennedy was on drugs because of his horrific back pain extending from his injuries during World War II. More recent than any of this, of course, was the dementia, the reduced capacity on a mental level of Ronald Wilson Reagan. We've had times in our history in which we've had presidents who suffered from various medical conditions. In this situation, the worst legacy of this administration, in my opinion, and this is speaking as a former member of the presidential administration, is the erosion of American trust in our government. We don't know who to believe or what to believe, and it makes us susceptible to any other country on the planet who has anything other than America's best interest at heart. So I'm concerned about Russian interference. I'm concerned about other nations who may attempt to interfere during this perceived downtime of the next few weeks, this uncertainty. Happily, the stock market at this point is not overreacting to the news. We'll wait and see what the president's medical condition actually is. And I'm sure if it worsens, there'll be an effect and a reaction on Wall Street. If it stays the same, there won't be. But the bottom line, Kelly, is we've got to put the trust back into government and the American people's faith back into our government, which is, as I say, right now in short supply.
Timothy?
Yeah, I believe last check, the market was down 200 points. I think this is a period right now, unfortunately, and it is a sad statement about our nation and the Republican Party. This will be ripe for conspiracy theories. And I assure you that the Russian government will utilize our social media and other outlets to put forth conspiracy theories regarding the health of the president, the source of the pandemic, and other things that's designed to stoke the American public. I think what's really important is that both Vice President Biden and those leaders in the Democratic Party assure the public that they can vote safely.
Gentlemen, I want to thank both of you as always with your comments and your insights, and certainly both of you have served in the halls of higher government for many, many years. So I appreciate what you bring to the table. Timothy Allen Simon, as well as Mark Harris. Have a great weekend, guys. You know, I'm praying for you, praying for the president, praying for this nation, and praying for all of us to get through this pandemic together. So joining me now to talk about the president's health and the health of the first lady as they are now in quarantine because of COVID-19 is ER physician Dr. Joffrey Mount Varner, who practices medicine here in the nation's capital. And Doc, you work with public health and you know what's happening out there in terms of COVID-19, and you treat patients who come into your ER room with COVID-19. And what, in all likelihood, is the president and the first lady facing because they're displaying no symptoms and they're in quarantine?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on my show, and my heart goes out to the first family. Given that they're asymptomatic, what they're facing really, especially given that they have tested positive, which means that they go into isolation. As long as they remain asymptomatic, depending on what study you read, they're going to need to be in isolation anywhere from 10 to 14 days. But what's unique is that they've been around several people. So there's a lot of people who will likely have to go into quarantine. And the difference is quarantine simply means you were exposed, but you have not tested positive, but you were exposed to someone who was COVID positive. So apparently there are a number of high level people who now should go into quarantine according to the CDC guidelines.
And you know, this means a lot to a lot of Americans who had gone around the country attending a lot of his rallies, his campaign rallies. And it goes to the core of the fact that he downplayed this COVID-19 pandemic because he didn't want to alarm the people, as he stated. And now the top of our leadership is now having to quarantine himself as well as his wife.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. But I still think that we are called to be, for lack of a better word, adults. So while the president of the United States may have been downplaying it, everyone over the age of 18, they saw what was going on in the media. They were able to read the information. They still should have been wearing a mask. But what this does really is it reminds America that we all have to wear a mask because no one is exempt from this virus.
Tell me, if you will, you know, based on what you just said, we all have to wear a mask because no one is exempt from this virus. Physically, what happens when you test positive for COVID-19 and you display symptoms? We know that there have been more than 205,000, actually 207,000 deaths in this country because of COVID-19. And we can't lay all that at the footstep of the president. All of us have some responsibility in this. But given the fact that there's never been a solid national strategy until of late with Operation Warp Speed, with the president going against his scientists, as well as Dr. Anthony Fauci, someone that you work with and have been talking to lately. What happens now?
What happens now is that people need to reevaluate their position as it relates to the COVID virus. For instance, one thing that makes the president's situation so unique that we can all learn from is that one way the virus spreads, because it's not a one-to-one transmission, meaning that just because I have the virus and I'm in the same room with you, Kelly, does not mean you're going to get the virus.
Mm-hmm.
But there are ways to greatly decrease the transmission. For instance, stay out of close quarters. Stay out of close quarters, especially with maskless people. Hence, that's what happened with the Trump leadership. They were in close quarters with no mask. And then what can help everyone is wherever you are, even if you have on a mask, increasing the ventilation. Increasing the ventilation will help greatly. And just from what I read, and I obviously did not attend any of those meetings, none of those things took place. Let's look at on Air Force One or the helicopter. That's a closed environment, closed corridors, and maskless people. That's a petri dish for the virus to spread.
Dr. Joffrey Mount Varner, thank you for weighing in on this. Obviously, this is going to be an issue that will continue to follow us between now and the election, and certainly disrupts the president's plans for campaigning. He was going to campaign in one of the hottest states in the country with COVID-19, and that's Wisconsin. Those plans are scrapped now. We do know that the vice president has tested and he is fine and well. A lot going on here, and certainly we understand how important it is to take care of ourselves. Appreciate you being on the program.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you, Doctor. Back with more after this. Joining me now is Dr. Avis Jones DeWeaver, political analyst and a best-selling author, talking about the support and strength and the exceptionality of Black women in her book. But she also studies politics quite astutely and has done so much work here in the nation's capital as it relates to politics. And certainly you've been following the president very closely. You're not a fan or supporter of the president, but we do understand that we care about people when they get sick. And this is a shocker to many people, especially to the president himself. What happens now politically?
Politically, this is, the October surprise of all October surprises. This is a president who gets energy from campaigning in person, who enjoys just flaunting the advice of his own medical advisors when it comes to wearing a mask and encouraging the rest of the public to wear masks, to such an extent that most of the people who come out to his rallies don't wear masks. He's someone who, quite frankly, also has shown that even after he found out about his exposure to someone who had tested positive, Hope Hicks, he still went and had a fundraiser after that and potentially exposed other supporters to COVID, and now he has tested positive. It's going to be interesting to see how his campaign pivots, given the fact that we're only a little over a month from the election, and for at least 10 to maybe 14 days, he's going to have to be sequestered in the White House, and so he won't be out there with his rallies as he has in the past. It'll be interesting to see what his campaign does to sort of recover from being sort of MIA in that way for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, let's look at the other side of this. Joe Biden, who had been very safe and still remains very safe, conducting virtual campaigns, wearing a mask, being insulted and mocked by the president, and actually called a weaker individual for wearing a mask.
Mhm.
How does this make Joe Biden's camp look in the fact that they were truly trying to safeguard not only the presidential candidate for the Democrat Party, but also the people that they will likely be engaging with on the campaign trail?
It shows him to be the leader that he is. This is someone from day one, way back in January, in fact. He wrote a op-ed in USA Today where he talked about the dangers of the impending disaster in terms of the coronavirus pandemic, well before it was really the center of attention in the United States. And from the very beginning, he's been modeling wearing masks. He's been having primarily virtual events instead of in-person events. And as you mentioned, he has been mocked about, being afraid to come out of his basement. Well, I guess somebody right now wish that he would have stayed in his bunker, because by him going out and getting exposed to this virus, he's not only put the lives of other people in danger, he's currently put his life in danger. As you mentioned, he is part of the age demographic that's especially vulnerable to this disease. He is overweight, which is also a complicating factor with this disease. He has other health problems, we understand, that also could be complicating factors. We don't wish, ill will on the president. We hope that he survives and that he recovers from this. But the reality is that he has shown a reckless disregard for the lives and the safety of other people. And then on top of that, just days after the election, the healthcare Affordable Health Care Act is going to be before the Supreme Court, which he is trying to stack with yet another conservative justice to try to eliminate it. So at a time that we're in the middle of a pandemic, and no matter what, he will have the best of healthcare. He is still trying to take away healthcare from millions of people. This is someone that, once again, we see has only been concerned with the health and safety of himself, but now he cannot escape the fact that this virus has attacked his own body. And my only hope is that if there is an ounce of compassion in there, he might have somewhat of a come to Jesus moment like Boris Johnson did. But to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not betting on it.
All right, Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeaver, making it plain and keeping it real from her perspective on what's happening and how this will affect our future in terms of what this president does in the midst of a quarantine and what happens with our election as we move forward. Any predictions on how this all turns out? Is it even possible to predict now?
It's going to be interesting to see how this goes. But I do think that the people will look at how these two candidates have addressed this issue and how they have modeled leadership and how they haven't. How one of them has basically sidelined all the scientists, put in place someone who is in favor of herd immunity, meaning that he wants everybody to get this, okay? They want you to get this. And you have someone else who has said, no, let's take that science and put that at the forefront and keep as many people safe and alive as possible. To me, the difference could not be more stark.
Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeaver, appreciate you as always. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So welcome back to the program. I am delighted, excited, and just feel so good about the next guest I'm about to introduce you to. She, without a doubt, is an incredible human being who's done some great things because of where she places her faith and her priorities and her purpose. Her name is CeCe Winans. CeCe, good to have you with us today. I mean, what can I say? 30 years of music and 12 Grammy Awards and numerous achievements and honors in your personal life and your public life. How are you doing these days?
I'm good. First of all, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. But I am blessed. I'm doing good. Going through a little, I don't even know what you call it.
That's a
little bump in the road right now. But hey, I have no reason to complain. God has been so good. He's been faithful to me. And life happens to all of us.
You said God is still on the throne. You reminded me of this song that you made in the throne room. That's a good song that brings up a lot of faithfulness, which is what we need right now. You've gone through, you said you were going through a bump in the road. Let's talk about that. Let's get it out of the way, because we've got so much inspirational things to discuss. This bump in the road you're talking about was actually done because you were actually trying to help people in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic. And by the way, let me add, I'm delighted to know that Marvin is doing well. I'm sorry for the loss of friends and loved ones that you have lost, like so many of us have. So this bump in the road, this impediment or this infringement upon your character, what happened?
Well, I was asked a few weeks ago, probably a month now, to do a interview with the Surgeon General, Jerome Adams, about the pandemic, about COVID-19. This interview was solely about the importance of wearing masks, what to do when one of your family members do catch it or have it and they're in the home, how to carry yourself, how to raise children in the middle of a pandemic, you know, how to choose different people that's going to be in that circle. So, you know, he described it as the bubble you need to create so your kids can still be with friends. It was very informative on how to get on the other side of this pandemic. And so when I was asked to do it, I didn't think about it being political whatsoever. Nothing was tied to it. It was just about the health and information that I know would be a blessing to my family, to our community, to my church. A lot of people don't know, but I'm a pastor. I've pastored now along with my husband for about 8 years. And we have a very diverse congregation. So needless to say, we have people in our congregation who don't want to wear a mask. We have people who do. And I thought this was a great opportunity. I asked the Surgeon General about that question, and he came back with answers why everybody should wear a mask, why important it was. It was totally opposite of what we've ever heard President Trump actually say, you know. And so that thought never came into my mind. It was never presented to me as being a part of a campaign of re-election or anything political at all. It was just really public service announcements. And so I was honored to do it. I was pleased about the video. And then what was it? Not last Friday, the Friday before last, I came off from singing actually. I was singing for a women's conference, a virtual women's conference, and I got finished and I looked at my phone and it was like, oh my God. I had already been called everything you could call somebody. And I was like, what is going on? And then I saw the ad that they had put out without any permission. We hadn't even signed off on the interview because they were supposed to do the interview and then edit everything, and then we would approve, you know, the whole interview. And so for that to come out like that, and for people to just, you know, believe what they read, which I guess they should be able to believe what you read, but we're just in a climate that I knew was already bad, but I didn't know it was this bad, you know? And so that's where I find myself, you know, that night when my team told me what was going on, they were like, we think you should probably say something to get on the front end of this. Made a video to try to explain it very short. You know, you could never answer everybody's questions.
Right.
And of course got shot down on that as well. And so I wanted to do an interview for those people who I know me, those people who I know love me, but also just for the truth. You know, I think it's important, especially during this time, but any time, is that the truth is told, and then people can either embrace it or not.
Yeah, and the truth being told, you were basically producing a public service announcement, which the Surgeon General has done repeatedly. In fact, his public service announcements have aired on this network, the Black News Channel, to make people aware of the threat from the coronavirus. Should we not wear masks or practice social distancing? I've interviewed him numerous occasions. But then it turned out that this public service announcement somehow was turned into a campaign ad for President Donald J. Trump's reelection. And
Right.
therein lies the rub and why you receive so much flack from people who otherwise have always supported you.
Yeah.
But let's be clear here. You didn't do this for the reelection of Donald Trump. You did this to as a public service announcement, and you were never told that this was going to be a campaign ad.
I didn't. Totally true. No, I did not do it to to campaign for President Trump or for anybody else for that matter. It was strictly told to me, and I embraced the fact of doing it as a public service announcement to bring hope, to bring healing, to bring knowledge. You know, knowledge is power. And so we've heard so many different things, you know, from the different news and different reports. I thought it was a great opportunity to get some clear answers on what we should do in order to walk in wholeness. Yeah.
CC, here's the deal. We are all in this together to fight this coronavirus.
That's right.
And you weren't making a political statement at all. It's sad and unfortunate that the Trump campaign put you into that without your permission.
Yeah.
But what really astounds me is the fact that people are so vicious in attacking you. And you're a woman. I know you. I know the work that you've done for youth in America, for youth around the world, for helping people on a continual basis, not just through your church, but what you've done through the power of your music. And you recall that I was in Nashville with you when you had a global event with so many young people who had been caught up in so many things. You were helping people against human trafficking, helping people against drugs. I think the world needs to know that, rather than to try to hold you accountable to something that you didn't have any control over. And once you found out about it, you corrected it. So what would be your message to America and to those naysayers who have tried to malign you and your integrity based on a campaign?
Well, I mean, like you said, and you know, even my wonderful friends, when they heard, they were, "CC, you okay? Are you all right?" And you know, first of all, I know whose I am, so therefore I know who I am. You know, and even though it never feels good to be misunderstood, you know, God has covered me and has blessed me for so many years. You know, I couldn't even bring my mouth to complain about what I was going through because of the fact of all the pain that I see people going through. And even though, yes, it didn't take them long to just throw away everything that I've stood for, you know, but I think it just dictates, it shows us how bad our climate really is, you know. And I can't even be angry with those who were angry with me. I just pray that they will take a minute and think and understand who I am, remember who I am, because I've been out here a long time, a public figure for a long time, and I stand for God, I stand for love, I stand for unity, I stand for justice, I stand for truth, you know, and it's not even about me, but it's about who I represent. I'm here today to talk to you because of who I represent. I refuse to let anybody dictate who I am, you know. I believe in the Bible, I believe in truth, and I believe in the love of God. But I do understand, you know, we've seen so much pain between the coronavirus, between all of the racism that has been going on. Our country, it's a lot of tension going on, you know, and two wrongs have never made a right. So I want everybody to kind of calm down. Let's pray, let's think, let's get out and vote. Let's do those things that are really going to make a difference in our nation, because, you know, becoming what we know is wrong is not the answer.
I'm talking to CC Winans, and when we return from the break, we'll talk more about the other things that CC's involved in beyond COVID-19 and trying to help people deal with this pandemic that we're confronted with. But CeCe Winans is a minister of the gospel. She's the gospel sweetheart, if you will, for so many years. 12 Grammys to her credit, and so much more behind the scenes. We'll talk to this incredible woman of God after the break. Welcome back to the program. So I'm having a delightful time with CeCe Winans. We've dealt with some business matters that had to be tended to. Homegirl will get it straight.
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord.
And that's right. Yes, Lord, because you do it in the name of Jesus. So, and I don't mind having people come on this show to talk about that, because I think it's important that we speak good news to a bad news world. And that's something you've been doing all of your life. You are a member of the what I call the first family of gospel, the Winans.
Thank you. Yeah.
I've seen you perform live with your family, with your brother BB. And what was it like growing up in a home where Pop and Mom Winans were instilling these values in your family, in your household, to make you a strong, vibrant, Black, beautiful, brilliant woman?
Oh, well, praise God. You know, as a kid, you don't always appreciate what when parents are instilling principles in your life. You know, as a kid, you know, we had a lot of fun. It was always a lot of singing. My mom and dad both sang, and we were raised in the church. And so I have incredible, beautiful memories, you know, but when you're training a child on principles, you know, it's like, oh, we can't do that, or why can't we do that? And but now when I look on, you know, I look back over my life, there's not enough words to describe how much I appreciate my parents. I appreciate the foundation of faith that they continued, not just to teach us, but they lived it in front of us. They lived it out, you know, and there's a difference in saying I'm a believer and walking out, you know, being a true disciple of Jesus Christ. And it's made all the difference in the world in my life. And so I thank God for growing up. You know, I'm sure as we were learning how to sing, and as my siblings were learning how to play the piano, I'm sure it sounded like a lot of noise at the Winans house for a while. But my parents stuck it out, you know, and they believed in us, and they taught us not just to sing about the gospel, but to live the gospel.
Look, before we go, COVID-19, it's also impacted your touring schedule, but you have something in the works coming up very soon and very soon.
Yes.
Tell us about that so we can all be watching and supporting you.
Well, you know, I believe you're talking about this incredible Thanksgiving program that I have coming up with Compassion. And I'm excited about it because it's about helping people. It's about helping kids. You know, none of us would be here without the love of God, the mercy of God, but also people helping us, you know? And so I will be doing a Thanksgiving special on November. I believe it's going to show November the 22nd. And I want everybody to watch. It's going to be an awesome, awesome time. I'll probably have a couple of surprise guests. We'll see who they are. But it's going to be a time of Thanksgiving, and also an opportunity to show love, to make a difference in so many children's lives. Again, sometimes we focus on all the wrong things. There's so many things we can do to make this world a better place on a daily basis. And I get excited that I get a chance to do that with some other wonderful people. And Compassion has done great things for years. And now I get a chance to give back to Compassion, but mainly to these beautiful children. So be on the lookout for the Thanksgiving, an evening of Thanksgiving with CeCe Winans and Compassion.
We'll have to have you back to talk about that. Are you talking about Compassion International, or?
Yes, Compassion International.
Wonderful organization. CeCe, you know, the last time you and I talked, which was several years ago, I was reminded of your dear friend, Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
Someone who was like your sister. And
yes.
What are some of the precious memories you have of such an incredible light that was here and taken too soon?
I have so many incredible memories of my sister. still hurts, still stings. Can't believe it. Her and Bobby Chris left here way too early.
Indeed, you two had quite a duet together.
Yes.
On me. And look, I appreciate you stopping by to talk to us. I know you had to get some things out and get it off your list of things to talk about, but it was more important to talk to you about the inspiration and encouragement that you continue to give. So I want to give it back to you. Don't let them people get you down.
I won't. Thank you so much. And I want to thank everybody for praying for me, those who have supported my family and I down through the years. And all I can say is let's keep changing the world together.
All right. Let's get
All
out
right.
and vote.
Thank you.
All right. CC Wine is here on the show. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, CC. Much love to you. We appreciate you always. Be blessed.
Thank you. You too.
Coming back with more after this. And welcome back. I want to thank all the guests who appeared on tonight's program. In particular, I want to thank CC Winans for joining in, and we'll have her again on Monday as well. My final word for tonight, hopefully by watching the developments in our country, we will remember to pray for our nation, from the president all the way to the person living on the streets. Let's care about each other. Let's keep on learning that we are righted, ignited, and united to spread love, freedom, and peace. Good night.
Come on, all aboard.
Let me break it down for you like this.
The rhythm of love is easy to find if you're listening. The color of light isn't red, black, or white, but it's crimson. We all bleed the same. If you don't feel the groove, it's alright. Just give it time, give it time. Come on, y'all. Get on board. Mankind won't survive if our hearts beat inside a hateful rhythm. You see, love isn't bought, but comes with a price of forgiveness, and we all bleed the same. Yeah. If you don't feel it now, just wait. It's coming on, the love train. Just give it time, give it time. Get on board. That means you and you on the love train. Get on board. All creeds and colors, brothers, all sisters and brothers, and sisters on the love train. Get on board the love train. Everyone's invited. We're all united on the love train. Get on board. All creeds and colors, my sisters and brothers, get on board.